Hello, ladies. This is Ebony Phoenix here. And again, Happy New Year. I'm back. I'm back. I'm like a bad penny. I won't go away. Well, I hope you have a wonderful start to this wonderful new year. We're going to make it that way, right, ladies? Anyway, so this is a little presentation that I made for you, and we'll call it Blackistan versus White Supremacy. Which would you choose? Yeah. It's a real title, huh? But stick with me. Let's see how this goes. Do you really have a choice? Okay, we're born into this country, we're born into a community, and my point is that the community that we're born into makes us suffer needlessly. So let's define white supremacy, okay? It's the belief that those with a white or distinctly European phenotype or similar to it are inherently, intellectually, morally, and spiritually, spiritually superior to all other peoples on earth. Subsequently, white people, quote in quotes, should benefit from the earth's resources and should control the people of other racial and ethnic backgrounds by forming systems that maintain that control through economic, educational, political, judicial, and military means. And we will also talk about the church. The church has a big part in this too. So let's talk about the United States because that's where we are here. The U.S. is a plural nation. It has all types of people and subcultures in it. And basically, under the guise of democracy, you really have an oligarchy and minority rule going on. And that's a whole different topic, but we'll get there at some point. There are many subcultures in the U.S. Black American culture is one of the largest, but falling behind quickly in terms of demographics. The Latin and Pan-Asian subcultures are becoming much larger due to, immigration and natural replacement, meaning they form families, have babies, and families with babies form communities, etc., etc. The traditions, cultural, governmental, educational, and spiritual institutions of the U.S. have been and are white supremacists for the most part. The traditions in the Christian churches and their doctrines and patriarchy, think about it. There are basically doctrines in certain Christian, I will put Christian in quotes, communities where they believe that racism is a real thing. It's a part of God's law and what God wants for the people of the earth. And that's why it's so doggone hard to break it. But many churches are trying. There are now denominations that are integrated, but the mainline denominations not as much. And I think that's why, and that's probably why they are shrinking in terms of number of participants and followers. Patriarchy, of course, is a part of Christian tradition, I would say, in terms of how secular people look at it, and actually how religious people looked at it for a very long time. And even that is changing a bit. The government, okay, there's de jure segregation, right? Jim Crow laws, misintegration, voting restrictions, educational limitations, job discrimination, prejudicial banking laws and regulations also, housing lending, redlining, that kind of thing. These are tools to maintain control of the Black community and basically other minorities communities and preventing its members from exercising their full rights as citizens, leading to perpetual impoverishment of Black communities and people while giving white people a sense of safety, security, and well-being. Okay, so let's talk about Blackistan. It's kind of a funny take on, you know, pretty much theocracies and countries that end in stan, like Afghanistan and Pakistan, Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan I think is okay, but you see what I mean. It's these places are these are countries that are in turmoil, um, as far as modern history goes. It's comprised mainly of ADOS people who are American descendants of slaves, basically the progeny of those who survived the transatlantic slave trade that came to the United States. Immigrants are not included, but do bear some of the same burdens that the ADOS communities bear: cultural misogyny, male worship, and toxic patriarchy, and stuff like female genital mutilation. Blackistani communities are usually impoverished, violent, uh, blighted neighbors and neighborhoods, and impoverished beliefs like anti-intellectualism. Nothing's gonna get better. Everybody else controls everything. It's basically a sense of helplessness in a way. Church bodies and traditions that emphasize individuals' spirituality. Now, you have to have your own relationship with the Lord. There's emotionalism, toxic misogyny, and toxic patriarchy. And so let's talk about the status of Black women in Blackistan. Okay, so we've gone over, you know, what the dominant society um, uh, does to us and has set up for us. Let's talk about the status in Blackistan itself. Most of the community's legal wealth is held by Black women. Black women contribute to most of the circulating currency in the Black community, even though the hurdles of gender and racial discrimination remain, which undermines the potential wages. Black men control the dark economy: gangs, trafficking, prostitution, drugs. And every subculture has a dark economy. Think about the Russian mafia, Chinese mafia, MS-13, on and on and on. What are Black women worth to the Black community? Well, when it comes to educational attainment, and this is in the literature, that Black women are getting most of the degrees, especially the advanced degrees. Um, so advanced degrees and advanced training can form wealth within the community. Uh, Black women form the families. Now, it doesn't, usually we have a very high out of wedlock birth rate, along of 75% or so. And, that's has been, the bane of Blackistan for a long time. Now, the face of out of wedlock motherhood is pretty much women of other communities who basically get together with Black men and have children. And those families are not usually not very stable either. Um, Black women form relationships, friendships. Basically, they're the ones who basically keep the churches going. Because if you go into any church, it's not 50% men and women. It's usually mostly women and children. And the wealth of the churches pretty much come from the women. And the organization of the church is pretty much women. Now, the officers and everything, pretty much women, because a lot of men don't go. They're not into that humble yourself stuff, I guess, and giving and all of that. But um, as far as Christianity goes, it's usually upheld. The communities and the churches are usually upheld by the Black women in the community. And the small business formation in the Black community is overwhelmingly um, due to the efforts of Black women. So, why is this? I mean, since Black women bring so much to the Black community, why the toxicity? Okay, coercive reproduction. We're talking sexual assault. We're talking about rape culture where girls, there's at least 62% or higher, which is likely higher, of young girls in the Black community are sexually assaulted by the time they're 18. Okay, that is not a statistic that basically upholds a community and keeps it together. And the girls are basically left to their own devices with the trauma. Um, Also, social media denigration regarding the appearance, of Black women tied to the worthiness of relationship with men. Now, this is really bizarre. Um, there are preferences, and those preferences do not look like a typical Black woman. She has to have one parent at least who is non-Black for a lot of Black men to consider her attractive and worthy of a relationship. And that's sad. So that is the saddest thing where, I mean, you face racism in the dominant society, but you also face colorism in Blackistan. And Black girls cannot be unborn, go back and get a lighter skin tone and be born again. That's ridiculous. And it is a way to control. It is a way to cherry pick. It is a way to pit women against each other. So also, let's talk about the fatherlessness. I mean, with an out of wedlock birth rate, the way we've had for decades, there's a lot of fatherless girls and boys. And I want to talk about the girls. There are no role models really for a lot of these girls. Some of them are fortunate to have it, but they have a very difficult time vetting male counterparts or romantic partners, and because they don't know what to look for, who's trash and who's not, who is worthy of being in her life. A lot of Black women and girls have a difficult time with that, and no one really tells them. Now, let's talk about the defamation of character in the media perpetuated by men. I mean, we've seen the rap videos, we've seen what's in the press. Black women are not regarded as a woman of worth to these rappers and entertainers, producers, sports figures, and they make it known. And I am sure that really hurts the self-esteem of young Black girls. So this overt sexuality is a symptom of that. And let's talk about the fact that Black women are expected to go out there and march for social justice for Black men. Don't put Black men in jail, blah, 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 blah. And the thing is, the women are an afterthought. Yes, police violence affects Black men more than it does white men. However, it does not affect Black women. Usually the Black women are collateral damage. Breonna Taylor was collateral damage. Wonderful, beautiful young lady. Life ended as a bullet shield for whoever she was with at the time. Now, let's talk about what Black women get out of all of this. There's no support for single mothers or their children, but there's blame and disdain. Uh, Black women and girls are being blamed and castigated because the community is nowhere where it should be, and it's the fault of all these single mothers and da 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 da. Well, who leaves the women to create single mothers? I said what I said. No educational support for disadvantaged Black children or with learning disabilities, children who are not neurotypical, with a autism spectrum disorder or ADHD. No. The mental illness is not looked upon as something that needs to be dealt with. because the Black collective does not want to deal with it. And yes, being a subculture that has been treated so terribly in U.S. society, yeah, you know there's going to be some mental illness, but we don't want to acknowledge that now, do we? Oh, here's the biggie. No advocacy or support for sexually traumatized women and children. And a girl can be trafficked out of church. I said what I said. There are cases, especially in the state of Georgia and Florida, where that has definitely taken place. Black girls go missing. And so what? So what? The Black collective just keeps going on. It's another day. Another girl, another day, right? Now, there's a lot of toleration for domestic violence and disparaging the image of Black women. Black women are 3 times as likely, and you can get it from the CDC report, 3 times as likely to be killed in a domestic violence situation. What does the Black collective say about this? I'm hearing crickets. They're pretty loud. And the Black collective all of a sudden has no appreciation for the feminine. And, you know, let's say 29% or around 29, 30% of Black men actually get married. And that's not to say that those marriages are going to be stable anyway. And that's bad for the community overall. And also, men get to narrowly define what femininity is, and that should not be happening. A woman is feminine by the fact that she is born a woman. And the funny thing is, you know, let's say you've got to have the right figure, the right skin tone, and the right hair, but then we're going to move the goalpost and say, your thighs should be a little slimmer. It's bizarre. For a part of the community, that a large part of the community, to denigrate the other part and basically not really add much, but a lot of trauma and drama. And now, these days, Black women are becoming random targets. And let's just say, you know, let's just be honest about it. Over 1,500 Black women were murdered last year. Go to the Facebook page, US Femicide US, and you can get the statistics there. So, why do Black women and girls tolerate this? Well, it's the devil we know, right? Fear of the unknown. Do Black men care about Black women's plight? Patriarchy serves them, not Black women, okay? White feminism versus Black feminism. The problem with white feminism, it was pretty much the second, it was first and second waves of feminism, where, you know, intersectionality is just not, is completely ignored. So Black women have a different set of concerns that white feminism does not take into account. Some people are trying to change that, but basically that's what it is. And a lot of Black women, and I understand, Black women and girls will not even call themselves a feminist, even though they believe in feminist principles. Black men are not served well in patriarchy because basically they're not patriarchs. Okay, patriarchs gather resources, build communities. However, the idea, just the very idea of patriarchy, serves them in the Black community. So why refer to Black males as kings? No, no resources, no respect, but he may have a felony or two. You know, and then that's why you have the quote unquote good Black men saying, oh, yeah, hey, I'm a prize here. But if you think about it, you go to the book written by Dr. Banks called Is Marriage for White People? You'll see why the good black men like this dating uh, availability imbalance. So all of this leads black people to be hooked on drama and trauma, and that is what they know. So what will it be in terms of, let's say you have the choice, okay? So the dominant society has racism, but Blackistan has colorism, okay? And that code is very strict. Uh, the dominant society does have some misogyny versus the misogynoir that the black collective has. In the dominant society, you do have an ability to work despite the racism, despite the sexism, despite all of the other things. Whereas in the black collectives, there are no jobs to really be offered to you. In the dominant society, you do have a chance to rest in your femininity if you date people other than African American men. You have a chance. Whereas in the black collective, you have no chance, especially if you have a darker hue um, to your skin, especially, the imbalance of marriageable males to females is so skewed. Got to be careful. Think about it. And in the dominant community, you can at least get some type of appreciation for your achievement versus no appreciation in the black community. I'm sure you've heard, all those degrees on the wall don't make you anything. That don't mean nothing. So I've also seen where a lot of black women and girls, they go to college with so much debt. Okay, so much student debt. And is the black collective rallying to that cause? No, they're not. They don't care. Whereas there are programs where a lot of black males can go to college to encourage them to go, but no takers. Rarely any takers at all. How are black women being served then? No, you might want to divest. Okay, first of all, why the pressure to stay in a community that does not serve you? Well, they need you. They need what you can do. They need you to march. You're wearing out your sneakers. They need you to advocate for the black male. Not yourself so much, but for the black males. And they want to act as if black women's lives don't matter. Over 1,000 black women dead at the hands of their significant others, and or someone that they may even casually know. Black women are hurt the most. And let's just be honest, the black collective never ever supported black women that way. So when it comes to the pedestal, black women have never been put on a pedestal of any sort. So she has the pressure of not being white, so she's not going to be on a pedestal. She doesn't have fair skin. She's not going to be on a pedestal. She doesn't have European features. She doesn't have the right texture of hair. She's not going to be put on a pedestal. She will be denigrated simply for being black. How is that different than being in the dominant society? Let me tell you why. It is different. In the dominant society, you have a shot. You have a shot if you're not so hooked on the trauma and drama. Whereas in the black collective, not so much. There's perpetual dysfunction. Every member of a collective or community has to be honored in order for the community to be healthy and whole. So, black woman, black girl, you were born in both of these cultures, both of these communities. But Why not just choose the dysfunction of one community, that is the dominant community? Why fight two battles? That's a lot. There are Black women and girls who are actually having strokes in their 30s. If Black women close their purses, close their legs, and decide that they want more out of life, they should divest. Loving relationships are just not for other demographics of women. They're for you too, Black woman. They are for you too. Black women's lives matter. Black woman, you matter. And you've always mattered. Other groups of women also face domestic violence, cheating partners, a whole bunch of STDs, and murder. But we face it the most. Shit always hits us the hardest. We deserve better. Better home lives, better work lives, better spiritual lives, a better community. The community or the community or the Black collective will not provide for Black women. It never has, really. Black women brought the resources to the community. Black women, your time has come. And it's about time. It's not enough to just be mad at Black men and date out called swirling. Be proactive about your life. You have much to offer, but you can't really break away until you can look in the mirror and love what you see. You need discernment about what is good for you, and much of what the Black collective has to offer is not good for you. Not good for a young woman or a young girl, at least. There is a reason we lag behind other demographics in America, other demographic groups, and including the immigrants, okay? There is perpetual dysfunction that is being covered up and ignored. Yes, the effects of racism can be felt, but that's not the whole picture. Let's talk about the mental illness bringing functional people and dysfunctional families, which leads to dysfunctional communities, broken relationships, broken people, broken community, the unhealed trauma, the hurt people who hurt other people. Children without fathers and sometimes without mothers, which is the worst case scenario. Why are so many of our children in foster care? Black women bear the brunt of it all. The receipts are obvious, ladies. It's up to you. Your time has come. So which will you choose? Honesty with self can bring anyone some wholeness and some closure. The Black collective has to be honest with itself and honor all in it or die. So which will you choose?